Now we can hear it. I bet they can hear us now.
Can you hear us now?
When the camera's on
Oh,
there.
good. I can hear us.
that's it.
Okay.
Camera's on there.
Now we should be able to plug back in and be fine.
Sorry, you guys.
I'm really sorry.
Let's,
Is the camera on there?
yeah.
It will be, oh my goodness. Default speaker has changed. Okay. Holler back in. I think you can hear us now. All right. Thanks for your patience again. We're going to get started with spinal workshop on some of our self-care tools and things to do at home. So welcome to Monarch's Tuesday night spinal workshop. I'm Dr. Kristen, for those of you that don't know me, and we're going to go through a list of things that are different than your postural tools that you may be using at home and things that we've done on previous workshops with actual movements. So Doc was doing all functional movements a couple weeks ago. So there's components there that, depending on where you are in care, that'll be a component that you want to, a video you want to watch, or go back to a recording that you want to watch. We're going to talk about, and then some of you, to not jump too far ahead, are using postural tools that may be the fulcrum, the Dena-roll, foam rollers, posture pumps, some of the decompression type pieces of equipment. All of those are very specific to each individual, to where they should be placed, how you should be using them, how long you should be on them. So, and where you are in your care. So depending on what frequency you are and how many adjustments and time you've had under care, that all varies. So when we talk about other self-care tools and things you can be doing at home, we're gonna go into a little bit more of a broad spectrum of ways that if you had no equipment at home or no other components, things that are supporting your healthcare and healing. So we're going to talk about ice and heat first. This is a component that's usually done really early on in an injury, or early on in changing something, making changes to patterns or changing in movement. That can be creating more movement. That can create a change in an inflammation process. That's a healthy thing, as well as when you have an injury. It is very healthy that you have swelling, if you will, or inflammation in an area. So one thing I'm going to cover with that you see at the first point here is that for the longest time, and it's decades, people have been told to follow the protocol of the acronym RICE, right? R meaning rest, I meaning to do ice, and C for compression, or to, wear some kind of a bandage to compress the area, and then E for elevation, right? To elevate it, get it above your heart, lay, with your head, your limbs, say ankle, propped up on pillows, and get it higher than the heart. All of those things should kind of defy gravity and get inflammation out of an area and work that inflammation back up towards the heart. There is research now that shows that there tends to be an overuse of ice early on. So within the first couple of weeks of an injury, we want to be doing both ice and heat to alternate basically the movement with inflammation and constriction and dilation. So yes, we want to move fluid to promote healing, but there's a reason that the body draws inflammation to an area. It's to protect it, to guard it, and to start some of that healing process and immobilize it so we don't overuse an area that's injured. So when it talks about what ice does, right, that's the constricting, that's closing things, the vessels, and pushing fluid out. And then it is very good to be using in combination with heat. So it's not to not use ice. It would be that you're not using more than 15-20 minutes at a time, and that you're doing it in cycles. So you will never hear us say, have ice on for a long period of extended period of time, nor should anybody lay on a heating pad and be there for 30 minutes, an hour, fall asleep on it, that type of component. So more recent studies are showing how we're using ice a little bit too often, or only ice with acute injuries. And then basically, because we're stopping that inflammatory process, you're slowing down the healing process. So we're lengthening the time it takes for that to actually heal and get back to rehabilitating and using it. So 5-minute rest periods in between, and alternating the ice and the heat. Finishing day, right, with this cycle and with ice. So that's a component that I would tend to say when I am going to alternate both, I'm ending with the ice, but that you've done time to do both, and to do a full 5 cycles is going to take you some time. Next is going to be other ways you can use water as the healing property. And for many people, especially this time of year as it gets cold, it's really using Epsom salt baths. Try to scroll my screen. I don't know that I can for you guys. Oh, there it goes. Try to move this up. There you go. For those of you being able to read the screen. Hopefully you're seeing that. Okay, so recommended again, similar to when you're doing ice and heat, that you're doing at least about a 20-minute soak. And it talks about the efficiency of that. So Epsom salt's a great source of magnesium. So some people do magnesium in their supplementation. It's a great way to get it into the system, into the muscular system, by just putting some in your bath water and soaking. It can help with tension, tightness, obviously that musculoskeletal, thank you, component. And when we see that tension or tightness, some people with magnesium deficiencies almost mimics like Charlie horse, that type of a intense cramping. Sometimes that can be a deficiency in magnesium. The only time I really experienced this myself was being pregnant. So this can be, you know, someone overexerting themselves, someone athlete at a high level. It can be someone who just doesn't have magnesium in their diet properly. And then you'll see it a lot of times further along in pregnancy when baby's getting a lot of your nutrients and you need to supplement with some of those. So it can happen in many different facets of life. And it can be pretty intense when magnesium is deficient in the system and what that does to the muscles. You're going to have most absorption at the bottom of your feet. So even if you weren't sitting in a bath, but you could soak your feet in a little tub of water and add it to the water, or have something of your Epsom salts in that foot water, that will again help your body absorb. I don't know if you've ever heard of that example where if you want to get something, there's so much absorption in the pores between your toes and at the feet that if you took you can test this if you are somebody who wants to test something like that, but if you took a small clove of garlic and you put it between your toes, within about 5 minutes, you would garlic out your pores. It absorbs really, really quickly into the system and then comes out, you know, the pores of the skin. So even if you're doing something for a kiddo, so soaking the feet as an adult, but doing something for a kid, if you were trying to soothe even a baby, you'll hear a lot of times it's take, you know, lavender, take like a diluted essential oil, put it on the bottoms of their feet, do this to yourself, put them on the bottoms of your feet, put a pair of socks on to kind of help keep that in, and then go to bed or prop your feet up using that type of technique. So deviating a little bit away from Epsom salt, but a lot of times with Epsom salt, you'll see somebody add like lavender oil, something calming, something relaxing. You could also add to your water or to your bath or to your, even just the bottom of your feet, and then put a pair of socks on. So again, directly absorbing that into the systems does help relief with muscle tension really, I feel like drastically and pretty intensely, but the relaxation property of that, you can find Epsom salt to most grocery stores. You definitely, I would say, do without fragrance like it shows here. And then when you know there's something that your body likes and it isn't bothered by something more of a natural fragrance, not a perfume added fragrance, like what it was in a lot of the products we buy over the counter, then that you could always add if you know your body's not sensitive to that.
Yeah, foot fixer, things like that.
Say that again, HP.
Yeah, foot fixer. Feet, you know,
Mm-hmm.
it's like bring that up to the toe,
Mm-hmm.
kettle pot.
Right. Yeah, it doesn't have to be anything fancy. Obviously, when we're talking about water and we're talking about where we use it, it is really important that we're hydrated. That is a key component to self-care, a key component to body healing. If you do not have at least half your body weight in ounces of water a day, you're dehydrating yourself. on top of if you do something like exert yourself, exercising and sweating. So there's a component we'll talk about with health here as far as our spine, our vertebra. I mean, how much of our body is made of water, right? 75% of it. So it's essential to restoring that so that our body can function and therefore heal. Same thing as far as keeping our discs hydrated, right? That's the cushion space between each bone in our spine. And that is keeping things, that those being well hydrated allows for the spine to function and move the way it's supposed to and not degenerate and age and become dehydrated, which then creates a multitude of other problems when that happens. But those that are, usually suffering from some version of compressive force, that's where you're going to have the disc compression, things that compound over time. And we were just talking about, somebody was talking about changing hydration, adding chiropractic. They've done nothing different in their routine in the last year or two. And I just had a patient in this week talking about how she went for a physical and she's like, I couldn't believe that I'm a half to 3/4 of an inch taller than I was. And I know it's just because I'm doing things to support my spine, support my hydration, support my curves. And that's where people lose that height with time, is because they're compressing over time and things are dehydrating, and that's literally slowly shrinking us. So when we go back to how much water, it's again, knowing that by the time you feel thirsty, you're dehydrated. So if thirst is something that you're like, oh, I get busy for 3-4 hours and realize I haven't taken a sip of my water or even gotten 1/4 of the way through my water bottle, it's great to, like we talk about when we do our spinal hygiene exercises, set an alarm. If every 15 minutes your phone, your alarm dings, or every hour, it's like, how far do I want to be through my bottle of water? So for someone, say, 150 pounds, so 100, like 75 of that or so, right, is your half your body weight in ounces. So around 70-75 ounces of water is what that person needs daily, just to replenish what you're using for your body to function and your organ systems to work. So HP, take your weight and just divide it in half. And that'll be the ounces that you want to have in water. So I love things that tell me how much I'm drinking, because sometimes it's so hard to tell. So, if you're looking at a bottle and you have something that measures, I know I need 2 of these a day minimum, just for my body to function at its optimum without working out, without exerting any other extra energy. And this is a really good point too, to talk about when we're at the elevation we are, right? And if we spend more time, say, in the mountains in the summer or winter, because we're skiing or we're hiking or we're doing things at even a higher elevation than 5,000 feet that we are in town, you could be easily 8,000-9,000 feet when you just go drive up an hour or 2 from here, if that. So you've got to calculate the fact that you're going to use more water when you're at a higher elevation like we are here. So let's go on to number 4. Seesaw breathing. Whoops. Sorry, I somehow bypassed that. So one way to change our physiology, we've talked about this a lot in some previous workshops this summer and fall, with talking about polyvagal and things that change our physiology by just working with our breath. So ways that you can quickly change our physiology is to pause and change your breathing pattern. And for most of us, especially if we're sitting at a desk or sitting stagnant, we can be in a posture where we're not sitting very upright. And so the more we're in a hunched position, the less air, literally just oxygen, gets into our lungs, therefore gets into our bodies, to our brains, to our muscle tissue, to all of that piece. So when we have a heart rate that slows down, our pressure lowers, our brain can focus on repairing and not just keeping up with what it's got to do, right? So when we put stress, so when you have an injury or wear and tear that comes along with constant use, if we use breath with intention, it really is improving our ability to manage stress. That changes what our chemistry system in our body is doing, right? Our endocrine system. So our happy hormones, our sad hormones, our stressed hormones, our relaxed hormones, things that help us when we're calm and we're sleeping versus when we're in that fight or flight, go, 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 handle the stressor, do the thing, right? So that changes our whole physiology and what our hormones are doing, just in a way in which we're breathing or not breathing, or focused on breath or not focused on breath. So It says either by the time or counting breaths, either lie down, sit straight, resting one hand on your belly and the other on your heart. Okay, so you guys won't be able to see me on camera, but everybody here can, right?
That's like really relaxed.
Yeah. So it's to focus in on where that breath is coming from. So you want to focus that breath from your belly. So breathing from our belly versus breathing from our chest or our shoulders. So do we feel that we're pushing that breath kind of from our belly and then slowly moving that breath into our chest? And then to our neck and then our head. So a lot of times you'll experience this when we're adjusting and we maybe ask you to take that breath from the belly and think about bringing it all the way up to where we're maybe holding you or cradling your head. Doing this yourself when you need to have a reset is a really great place to support that self-care is resetting, taking that breath in. You're always breathing in, exhaling, or breathing in through the nose, exhaling out through the mouth. So really working through a total of, like it says, 10 breaths over 3 to 5 minutes. There's also something we talk about with the 4-7-8 breathing. That's something that's part of that polyvagal. So when you really want to activate that calming part, that healing part of your nervous system, there's some other breath sequences that we can help you with if that's of interest to you, that you can use just in your day-to-day. And how hard is it for us just to pause for a minute and breathe, right? Any of us can do that anywhere, whether it's sitting at a traffic light, in our bedrooms, the middle of a day, in between a conversation. And that doing that consistently really helps changing your physiology more permanently and creating a better pattern for healing, and not getting to a place where if we're so stressed or in a place of intensity, you're not healing when you're in that stressful state, right? Postural interruptions. So this is where we're kind of setting an alarm. Every 15 minutes, you're getting out of a seated position, right? Doc did a whole workshop a few weeks ago or last month that was how sitting is the new smoking, right? How sitting is killing us. That is the conversation that is kind of replaced where it used to be talking about smoking. But it's really showing that static posture longer than 15 to 20 minutes puts a significant amount of stress on the structure and on the brain. So it's recommended that we interrupt our posture every 15, 20 minutes, just like we would in other things, to do something different, to reset, to move and create a different pattern in our brain than sitting in a stagnant one. And it's not a length of time. It's like taking a minute or 2 or 3 minutes and maybe walking around, refilling that water bottle, taking a bathroom break, doing a few sets of repetitions of that breath, that breathing, and then coming back to what you're doing. So it's not like we've got to take a 5, 10, 20 minute pause. It's just pausing short bursts more often, rather than realizing, oh, I've been at my computer for 4 hours and I haven't even gotten up to change my position. So when we talk about actual movement, the last few, oh, sorry, I keep going too far up, is doing some rotations with the neck and stretches, but also doing them with some slide extension like you see in that picture. This is, again, perfect to do, including breath with it. So it's a good movement for your brain to reset. So rotating the neck and adding slight extension, which means kind of that looking up, taking that chin upwards. And if there's discomfort, that's not a place we want you going that far, but getting to a point where you feel like you can follow your eyes back to the corners of the room. So doing this a few times and every hour. So I think with where we're all in here, at least sitting, and you at home, would be just to, uncross legs, kind of get in a more squared off, centered posture, right? I want us to sit up to the back of our chairs. Perfect. And now you're going to get more air in as if you were sitting cross-legged, sitting slouched in the chair, right? Anything where our shoulders are rolled back and our head forward. So I want us to take that breath in as we just turn our head comfortably to the right. And then gently just tuck the chin up, tilt the head back. And again, just to a comfortable place to where your eyes are almost going, your eyes can roll to the back of the room or that corner of the room. Breathing in from the belly button, filling up the belly, then to the chest, and then to the neck and head. Good. And then you're going to come back to the straight. You're going to turn left. Tilt the chin up just a little bit. Let the eyes go to that corner of the room while you take that breath in from the belly, into the chest, into the neck and head.
I know.
So even being able to do a few of those side to side a couple times a day, every few hours, helps that brain reset, changes what you're in the middle of doing. So a couple other things that I'll end on here is something I sort of touched on, included into using things with water, like the Epsom salt bath. Peppermint essential oil is a great one to add for lots of components of health, but promoting and healing for lots of reasons. So we could do a whole workshop on oils and the natural benefits of properties within different oils. But that's why with pain relief, even on over-the-counter things on the market, you find things have more of a menthol, mint, peppermint, wintergreen, spearmint in their lotions, oils, like as a muscle reliever, but it also does a lot of other properties. So yes, pain relief is probably what we know of it most, especially in things we buy in our grocery store. But it's also very anti-inflammatory. A lot of mint is used for digestive support. So somebody who gets nauseous or has upset stomach, mint is very helpful for. And then also antiviral bacterial as well. So used in a lot of different ways to promote health. And again, I think we mostly hear of it, using it for like musculoskeletal relief, for relieving muscle soreness and aches, but it has a lot of other health benefits. With a pure essential oil, you can dilute it. So 50-50. So if you do a little bit of like a coconut or an olive oil or jojoba oil. So you would do coconut oil, like if you did like a pump of coconut oil and then maybe a drop of a pure essential peppermint oil, and you can blend that, mix that together, and either put it on a muscle area, put it on the bottom of the feet, put it on pressure points where you have that tension, like back of neck, behind the ears. So, and it's going to give you that cooling sensation. It's again to decrease that inflammation and create that relaxation. And yes, I would say with what we have noted there, watch that you're just getting something that's more of a high quality and a pure essential oil, so that again, it's not more perfumes added, which is a lot of what's on the market. It's more diluted. It's not a pure oil. So you'll have less irritation to skin and your oil will last a lot longer. You're going to use a fraction of it compared to what you're doing with something that's more perfumed or has a lot of additives. Another way, light therapy. So a lot of people are familiar at this day and age with like cold laser. This is a concept that's really improving healing at the microscopic level. So at the mitochondria of a cell. So that's the part that produces energy. And that's what increases that cellular process that promotes healing. So when you see people using laser techniques, it really changes the life of the cell and basically allows it to happen at a faster rate. So the body's going to heal naturally at a set rate. When you utilizing cold laser therapy within that light therapy, it just speeds up the process that mitochondria goes through and does. So it allows to also flush areas around it that get stagnant, where there's damaged tissue or cells that just sort of sit in the area, flushes that out and allows the healthy cells to just get more stable and respond faster, and then speed up the healing process. So that's a great way if there's been sprains, strains, chronic injuries, things where there's been scar tissue developing, or things that have been there for periods of time, wounds that scar tissue isn't healthy tissue, it's an injured tissue, right? So it never is perfect like to where it was before that. Using sessions where you're doing a 5-10 minute session goes a really long way to promote the healing in that area. And it goes deeper through muscle down to that joint level as well. So it's a really great way to work on areas that have been injured or have had a lot of repetitive injury that are chronic. Say that again, HP. Give me an example of what you mean. So cold laser would be different for where you would use that, or how that would be used for that purpose. But the things you're doing in supporting your brain functioning at a higher level, right? Your body understanding more of what it needs to do to function is also something that's being very well supported with your adjustment. And these are just additional things you can add to that.
Like birthmark has something,
I don't know if I could speak to that.
or like birthmark. You like you get rid of.
Hmm,
It's like you take off, take off the test.
gotcha. So I don't know, that's not how you would use cold laser. This is at a different healing level to the cell level, not necessarily something that's on the skin. So that's a different type of laser. That's a different type of technique. Yeah, this would be more at the healing level of energy.
Yeah. Each other.
So different if it's on the surface on the skin, and then different for how the body's going to utilize the healing property. So yes, removing some. Right. So I think if you're removing something that is damaged cells or tissue, right? So something like say cancerous, then something that's going to speed up a natural process or your the healthy cells in healing could be something like cold laser and other type of therapies that way. Right. Sure. Overexposure to things. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So there's very healthy properties, right, to sunlight. That's where we get a lot of our vitamin D and a lot of healthy properties. And like anything else, you can do too much. Right. Right. And it's all about how much quantity too is probably being taken in, right? As with anything, there's too much of good things. I've known therapists that have actually gotten themselves very, very sick using way too much essential oils, combining way too many of them together and not using them properly. So, you can overdo supplements and taking vitamins and do more damage than help, right? So that's where I would say, take these components, ask us about which ones make sense as far as maybe adding to your self-care at home and where you're at in your healing process, or maybe something here that you can pick out of this list that we've not discussed and you've never tried, that can support you in the goals you have towards healing in your health journey. So thank you for joining us tonight on adding some self-care tools that you can do at whatever level you are in your healing that are going to promote a healthier well-being and sense of regeneration. We will look forward to seeing you next Tuesday night before we start our Thanksgiving holiday week. So please join us next Tuesday, same time, same place, and we will see you then. Thanks again, everybody, for your patience in our technological challenge today. See you in the office.
Thanks, Dr. K.